Hey everybody, I'm Anna McEwen. And now for Bob Switzer with the Epic Narrative.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Epic Narrative. As always, it is a pleasure to be here with you, to hang out with you in all that we do here at the Epic Narrative. We are currently, at the time of this recording, still in the Florida Keys. It's honestly, I mean, we both work full time, but it really doesn't cost us much to live here except for food. Food's expensive. It's like living in Hawaii. I remember visiting Hawaii and everybody was like, save money for food. And they weren't lying. But I would recommend the same advice if you come to the Florida Keys, which is, depending on when you're listening, I may not be here anymore. Only time will tell. So we are on episode 2 of season 4 of the Epic Narrative. We are going to look at a verse out of Leviticus. That is the book that we are in. We are going to be looking at the second verse of chapter 1, where it says, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when anyone among you brings an offering to the Lord, bring as your offering an animal from either the flock or the herd or the flock." So we're gonna break that down because actually there's more instructions there than what shows up in the English, and I think it's important because even the word that's translated Lord, bring anyone among you brings an offering to the Lord. That word Lord is different than others, and I think it all indicates one of the main things that we are continuing to pursue, which is the goodness of God and His desire for relationship with His people and His and His creation and His children, like all the same thing. He's just a God of relationship, and He desperately wants to connect with you. So we are going to continue to do that. I'm noticing weird things in my that are different from yesterday. Sorry. As you guys know, I'm recording different things differently this year than ever before because I was blessed with an amazing computer, and now we're recording through GarageBand, and I'm not seeing the same things again. And you remember the last one, right? The first episode just probably sounded terrible because it turns out my microphone wasn't the microphone I should be using. I was using a different microphone, and I was wandering all over the place, and the quality is not great for sure. And I'm sorry about that. I may end up doing a different. I may re-record it, actually. We'll see what happens. I'll let Brian listen to it and tell me what he thinks, because that guy is brilliant, and he probably can make me sound just fine. All right. So in that verse, we see that this is a general call for the people to bring sacrifices. Now, what is that supposed to be like? What is that supposed to feel like? Now, animal sacrifices were very common in the culture of their day. All right, there wasn't some mysterious like, ooh, they're sacrificing animals type of thing going on. Like this was a regular thing in the culture. Every nation had animal sacrifices to various gods and idols. The cities had their own form of sacrifices that they would participate in. The villages, even families, would have forms of animal sacrifices that they would release. There was just a long history of animal sacrifices, traditions, and rituals and religious ceremonies. It all goes into this. And so when you look at the system, quote, the system that God put in place, He put it in place because people were familiar with it. He didn't put it in place because it was unique to him. It's a system that people could connect to. They could feel comfortable engaging with. It's not designed. It was never designed to last forever. It was designed, as I've said many times before, and I'll say it many times again because I know we're changing a paradigm of thought for so many. It was designed as an on-ramp to a personal relationship with God. That's what it was designed to be. So here in the literary writing, we see that at its core, right? It's to reach the heart. It's not a ritual. It's not a system to keep, the master happy or to keep bad things from happening. I think, sorry, I'm going to look at it again. Speak to the Israelites. Say to them, when anyone among you brings an offering to the Lord, bring it as an offering. Bring your offering, an animal from either the herd or the flock. So when that word speak, it means a brief, concise expression of what God is revealing. So again, Moses wasn't supposed to turn this into an extended conversation. His goal in all of this was to be concise and connect people to the truth. What is written here is designed to be a guide, right, to the conversations that would take place around the expectations of God with his people. God does not expect only the words written in the law to be the only things that people ever assume that he ever says. He wants them to be an outline, to be highlighted points that trigger conversation and trigger interaction amongst people and amongst themselves and him. So as this expectation of an application of the interpretation, wow, that was a good line. I like that. It was supposed to carry with it, right, the personal experiences and perspectives of the people that were passing on the revelation. In this case, Moses, and we've talked about that. But the written was not to be the sole expression of God's word. Now, this is where it's important again to hit up on the fact that when Jesus came to earth, he expressly made himself the Word of God. Because one of the things that he was trying to correct was the mentality that had long been established in the Jewish world and culture, that the Word of God was the written Torah, what we're studying right now. And Jesus was here on earth expressing not only the way the Father looks, acts, and speaks, but he was expressing the heart of the Father regarding sacrifices. He's like, you need to understand the sacrificial system has become this religious ritual that has stolen from you what my Father really wanted, which is interaction with you on a personal level. Now, I know that much is made of the Jesus in the temple, the flipping of the tables, the whipping of the men, women, and children that were there, just beating the tar out of them, spilling the money on the ground so that the poor and needy could take off the ground what had been stolen by the evil money changers. And he said, "You have turned my father's house of prayer into a den of thieves." You remember, right? It's like two verses, and people literally base their entire theology of social justice and violence on two verses that they probably have done all of 10 minutes of study on. Sorry, that was probably rude. But it does. I get very passionate about the interpretation and translation of those verses, because when I actually took a look at them, because that was one of the first places I went when I was like, all right, God, if you're really good, we have some problem passages. And I started with that one. And it was really clear. This was a problem passage until I started breaking it up, breaking it apart, and really taking a look at it. And there it was. Nothing in the attitude of the literature that is written, nothing in the translations indicates anger. The making of the whip, culturally commonplace for rabbis when they would clear out all of the animals. You see, the marketplace culturally was where the Gentiles would go, and they would, in order to get teaching, the rabbis would go to that section of the temple and they would teach the Gentiles. If their teaching was going to go on for more than, a few minutes or more than just reciting some chapters, they would shut down the marketplace. And they did that by turning the tables toward the inside of the column. So if you went, archaeologically speaking, if you go there were archways. The whole marketplace was surrounded by archways, and within the archways would be a table, and behind the table would be the person working the marketplace, selling their wares, whatever it was. And the money changers were there as well. Well, to exchange money in the temple, you had to get a license. And in order to get a license, you had to obey a strict set of rules. And one of them was you could not charge more than 8% interest in exchanging the monies for the consistent coin that the temple wanted. And yes, it did have the picture of Hercules on it. That was the coin that they wanted. And Jesus came in and he knew he was going to do an extended teaching on how the system had stolen from the people the opportunity to be in relationship with God, that the religion and rituals of the sacrificial system needed to end because it had turned into a den of thieves. The house of prayer was a house of relational connection to his Father, and that's what that temple should have been, but it wasn't. I'm not saying there weren't shenanigans going on politically and religiously and all of that, but Jesus's point in teaching was not, I'm going to flip the tables and whip people and clear out the temple and make everybody feel shame and guilt for what they've done. He was expressing and illustrating the reality that everything that they had put together there was no longer necessary because he was going to put an end to it. His sacrifice would nullify all sacrifices for the rest of time. So this interaction in the temple was one of I believe a very normal scene. The rabbi came in and he says, "Hey guys, I'm going to shut everything down. I'm going to do an extended teaching here." So the animals that someone like behind a table, if they were selling animals for sacrifice, the animals weren't behind the table. The animals were staked down in the middle of the marketplace, or maybe not in the middle, but around the marketplace. So they would drive a stake in the ground, and the ox would sit there. And then if they sold that ox, they'd go get one from wherever their supply was, and they'd bring it back and put another one there. So yeah, he helped the market, the people who sold animals there. He helped them move the animals out so that everyone could have a place to sit. And he flipped tables over, but again, it doesn't mean it was violent. It just means that's what you would do. If your booth was closed, you would turn your table inward. You'd flip it inward. So if he did flip a table, it didn't have to be violent. And if he spilled money onto the ground, it would have been on the inside of the booth where the person who ran the booth could come back and find all of their money. All right, sorry. So that's I get much more passionate and I actually did a bonus episode on season 1 about it because I just it's crazy to me. It's like people picked that one section of Jesus's life and turned him into this angry, violent God that they as a preacher or minister or just average Joe Christian can say, well, people tell me to be like Jesus. Well, just remember, flipping tables and whipping people are part of are also options. They get all like arrogant and rude and nasty. And all right, move along, Bob. All right, here we go. So God is setting up a system to be personal. To be personal. He's like, I want you to bring your animals. I want you to bring your animals. When it says if any man, that word man is actually the same word for Adam. So it's literally anyone. You don't bring what isn't yours. He's like, bring it from your flocks, from your herds. It was you see, in the culture of the day, a lot of sacrifices to in various villages and cities and nations around the world, because it was a ritual just to appease an idol or a god. You could use anything. You could steal something and bring it in for a sacrifice. You could borrow one and say, listen, I'm in real trouble with whoever, Apollo. I need to, I need a loan. Can we work out a thing where you loan me 15 bulls because I really, really need to make this sacrifice. God is saying, listen, if you're going to do this, it's going to be personal. You need to bring me something from your flocks, from your herds. And as we break through all of these offerings, there are offerings that are incredibly simple. Everyday products like grain and oil. And you don't even have to have much of it. Like, it was like a half a cup or something like that. Like it's something that basically everyone could do, and you could do it personally. Because this is not about sacrifice. Right? I know the word gets translated and often interchanged, but this is not about sacrifice. This is about an offering. And there's a difference. An offering is rooted in a word that means coming near. This meaning says, listen, if I'm going to bring an offering, it's because I want myself to become closer to God. The translation of sacrifice doesn't capture that nature. It doesn't capture the intention of what an offering was supposed to be. So I do know, again, preachers often, they like the idea of sacrifice. They like you to hear the word sacrifice. They want you to bring a worthy sacrifice to the king, that sort of thing. And they talk about it because it manipulates you and brings you guilt and shame. When God's talking to Moses, he talks about an offering. He's like, I want this to be personal. I want it to be individual. I want to connect with people. I want them to get the sense of coming near, of getting mercy from God, to draw closer. So in order to get mercy, he uses a different name for himself. Here, in the NIV, it's translated Lord, but the word is Hashim. And it's a 4-letter word for God, and it connects to the attribute of mercy. Now, the name Elohim is not tied to the word offering because it denotes an exposure of all that needs to be exposed, which is what the word judgment means. It's not the idea of violence. It's the idea of light into dark places. It's the idea that everything that isn't seen will be seen and evaluated so that we can judge it. We can make determinations as to whether it has value in our life or not. That's the judgment of God. Here, he uses the word Hashim because he's saying, I want them to connect to mercy. I want them to draw closer, not to be judged, not to be like, oh, I'm going to have to go expose myself to a bloodthirsty master who's going to look to beat me and destroy my life, but I need to get right with the master or my family will suffer, that sort of thing. No, he's like, bring an offering, draw closer, sense the mercy and grace of God. These are the things that are in the language. The rhythm and language indicates that if you bring an offering to Hashem from yourself, it's your essential humanity. It's representing your sincere effort to draw closer to God. It elevates you to Him because you're getting closer to Him. Listen to that. The idea of offering is the idea of elevating to a place of closeness to God. If you merely go through the motions of performing a sacrifice, the offering remains merely yours. That's the difference between an offering and a sacrifice. You bring a sacrifice, it's for you. You bring an offering, it's for you to become closer to God. And He draws close to you and you draw close to Him, just like Jesus taught. It's interesting, but this is the heart of God. He is interested in and desiring of His creation to draw closer to Him so He can draw closer to them. He never wanted a system of behavior to prove yourself or your character to Him. What He wanted was opportunity for you to draw closer to a good God who's willing to have you in a close relationship with Himself. When the system becomes the relationship, then the system has lost its purpose, and that was the point. The system was eventually supposed to lose its purpose, and in Jesus, it did. Jesus made it very clear. The system is no longer relevant. It's a thief. And I'm here to set you free. And He did. And that's one of the passions of the gospel, is you are free now to be in relationship with God. Anyways, all right. I appreciate all of your time and your attention. I know we just covered one verse, but I think if I dive into the rest of this chapter, right, we're going to be here for 2 hours. So I hope you had yourself a great day, and we'll look forward to connecting next week. We'll continue the chapter 1 of the book of Leviticus during season 4 of the epic narrative. I already said have a great day. I don't know what to say next. See you next week.
Don't go anywhere. We've got Bob Thoughts.
Well, I know. You guys are thinking, where was Bob Thoughts last week? Well, Bob Thoughts got forgotten. Bob forgot his thoughts. Let's see. It was just a combination of circumstances, and now we're back. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. Currently, at this recording, we are in the Florida Keys, and it's beautiful down here. Just beautiful. For sure. I listened to episode 2 and I thought that was kind of boring. But it does go to the kind of this season, you look at it and you say, why are you spending all this time on the law? And it's like, well, I'm spending all this time on the law because it's part of the epic narrative. It's part of the story. And so many things go back to this, to your perception of who God is comes from the law in most cases. People tie it back to this place. And these are the books, and I probably said this before, but these are the books that Jesus used on the road to Emmaus when the two strangers or whatever, they're walking along with him, and it says that he opened up the books to us, and we were in amazement. He used these books to show them that God was a loving, kind, amazing Father, and that's what we're going to do. So, I honestly, I hope I do understand that it may not be as entertaining as previous seasons. I do. I don't want you to think that I'm like hey, everything I do is so entertaining, but I do think we have a good time with it, and I do think that you'll enjoy the overall themes that we'll pick up on. And, hey, Joshua's next. And that is, we get right back into in essence, the narrative of Scripture. So, yeah, hope you guys are having a great day. I appreciate those of you that have donated and supported us. My goodness, I was so blessed. So blessed by people's donations. Of course, as you know, I'm recording on a brand new computer that is, such an amazing machine. Probably won't have to even think about, upgrading it, so to speak, or anything like that for years to come. And just last week, somebody reached out and said, "Hey, I heard your phones are getting old. I'd like to upgrade those for you." So we were able to upgrade our phones as well. And I know it's, people support in different ways. And if you can support us, that's awesome. And we look, I'm not a 501c3. I'm not going to be. I have I have some, we'll just call them issues with that particular alignment. So you just have to give directly, and you can do that several ways. You can reach out to me privately, thebobswitzer@gmail.com. You can reach out to me, contact me through my website, thebobswitzer.com. So reach out. You can find me on Facebook pretty easy. You can find me on Messenger. You can find me on Instagram. I'm all over the place. Can't wait to connect with you. Feel free to reach out, and have yourself a fabulous day.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to this podcast on any platform you use. You can also reach out to Bob for questions or booking at thebobswitzer.com or email him at thebobswitzer@gmail.com. See you next week, guys.